During this interview, I'll be speaking to Mike.
There was no passion behind what I was studying at uni. I got introduced to trading probably a year later from that. Around 2022 was when I was first introduced to the concept of ICT. At the time then, that's when things really started to kick off for me. You couldn't misread it. I'd done the mentorship, I'd studied, and I started seeing probably the most amount of gains in my trading journey. I wanted to be able to enjoy the things that I loved enjoying at the time, and trading was probably the only way to do that, the only way. I was glad I didn't look back. It's there, it's precise, it's algorithmic, and it's beautiful. It speaks to me.
Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing well. Welcome to this new student interview. During this interview, I'll be speaking to Mike. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Frank. How about you?
All good, man. Very excited to speak to you today. Where are you from?
Me too. Well, I'm half Dutch, half Greek.
You're Dutch?
Yeah, half.
Can you speak Dutch?
No, my Dutch is horrible.
Horrible. That's unfortunate, brother.
Yeah,
Else we
yeah.
do this interview in Dutch. Imagine that.
Oh, imagine. It would be terrible.
Where are you based?
I'm in Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Also in the UAE. That's amazing,
Yeah.
man.
No, I've been here since 08 or 07.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Long time I've been here.
That's good to hear, man. Could you share a bit about your background in trading?
Sure. I'd say I probably was introduced to concept of trading probably around 2015, 2016. And I remember I had a really big interest when cryptocurrencies has come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was in 2015, mid 2015, I started mining a little bit of like Ethereum.
Okay.
And there was just this fascination with cryptocurrencies because I genuinely thought at the time it was going to be the future, right? And I got introduced to trading probably a year later from that, probably in mid 2016s.
Okay.
And at the time I was still in school, right? So the fascination was there. It's just I didn't pursue it as much. And I really got into it, I'd say at around 2019. Yeah, 2019, 2020, that's when I decided that this is kind of something that I wanted to pursue as a passion.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during COVID as well, where at the time I was in Amsterdam and I was studying. And I didn't enjoy what I was doing at all. And the only thing I could think about was the fact that there was no passion behind what I was studying at uni. There was no consistency with trying to achieve that goal. So I ended up falling into the little rabbit hole of trading, and it kind of took off from there. And I'd say from 2020 onwards, I spent day in and day out just studying, trading, and investing. And then I got introduced to obviously the retail-sided concepts of trading. And then I'd say at around 2022, around 2022 was when I was first introduced to the concept of ICT. And at the time then, that's when things really started to kick off for me. I'd found something that my brain naturally kind of picked up on. And it was the way I viewed the markets, which had really changed. And don't get me wrong, during my very start of pursuing trading, there was nothing that was really concrete. There was nothing that really caught my eye up until the moment when I was introduced to ICT concepts. And I remember
what was it that really clicked for you? What was it that resonated so much?
It was the precision in terms of how price moved. So yeah. I remember when I was focusing with like retail-sided theory and techniques, right? The technical analysis with that. It's subjective. It's, you'd show it to two different people and they'd see different things, right? But with ICT, you would see it day in, day out, and the same things occurring over and over again. And you couldn't misread it. You couldn't. It was, you looked at it and it was perfect almost. And I think what I loved the most about ICT's concepts was how the market moved once you perceived it in that fashion. I ended up simplifying it in a sense where it was less stressful and easier to make decisions. And if we fast forward a year from there, in 2023, that's when I was introduced to you, right, and your YouTube channel. And I'd studied, I did the first mentorship, and I just remember, like I could remember it like it was yesterday. I was looking at the trades, the entries, and I'd accumulated a decent amount of knowledge, and I was looking at it, and every trade, there was at least 80% of it which I couldn't answer. Like there was questions that I had that I looked at it and I was like, I'd go into my own charts, I'd investigate, and I'd still be left with lots of questions. The precision was, it didn't seem real. It didn't seem possible from at least the knowledge that I had. And I'd done the mentorship, I'd studied, and I started seeing probably the most amount of gains in my trading journey, right? And it was just fascinating. With me, I've just had an infatuation with the concept of trading and how you make money and how it impacts at least your lifestyle with what you can do with your time. That's what I love the most.
That's amazing to hear. What a background story that has been, and what a ride it has been as well. Quite some time, of course, already of you being connected to the markets, first starting off in crypto mining, eventually getting to know about trading. But what I picked up on your story as well is that situation that you were in school or in university and you didn't like to be there. Was trading for you like your way to get out in that sense?
Well, in the moment, it wasn't the way to get out, but I was left with a decision where I either pursued my degree or I didn't. And I made the decision to not pursue it. And I didn't have trading as the main instigator of that factor. And then once I really got invested, once I really got passionate about it, I was glad I didn't look back, right? And that's the thing that trading offers, is that if you apply it in a certain way, if you give it 110%, if you treat it like any other area of your life, it's difficult to not succeed, right? Especially if you approach it with the same kind of principles that you teach as well, right? And I had a lot of my friends who told me that it wasn't the best of ideas to drop out of university. Now I have like my own opinions about university and the benefits of it. But that's not kind of the life I wanted to live. I didn't want to live the kind of life where I'd have to get a job, be employed, and sacrifice my time for money, right? I wanted to be able to enjoy the things that I liked enjoying at the time. And trading was probably the only way to do that, the only way.
So it was the realization of this is your path to freedom.
Yeah, yeah. And
how was that
interesting...
for you to like go against the opinions of those friends around you? Because you need to have a certain degree of courage for that.
Yeah, I've always been decisive with anything in life, always. But I think I'd have to thank my parents for that particular time in my life. They were very supportive, very supportive. When I'd moved to Amsterdam, it was a lot for me. I mean, I might be Dutch, but I grew up here my entire life in the Middle East, and the way of life there, the way I went about, going to university, it's just, there was too many negative factors to it, way too many. And aside from all my friends telling me that it's not the smart decision, my parents, my mother and my father, they were very supportive, and they knew that, I think deep down inside, they knew they weren't going to be too worried, especially with the kind of person that I am. I think they knew that whatever I wanted to do in life, I would do it well. And as long as I was passionate about it, I don't think they were too worried. And
that's amazing to hear, man.
Yeah. So luckily for me, I had very supporting parents who've supported me throughout the entire journey, even today. And I think that's primarily the biggest reason why I am where I am today and what I'm doing.
That's amazing. How is it possible that your parents are that supportive of the idea of their son not going down the regular path of life? Do they have unique lives in that sense?
No. See, my dad's an airline pilot. So when he was younger, he studied, he went to university for economics, and he also believed in trading the same way I believe in it. In fact, my dad was always encouraging me to pursue it even more. And I think it's because my father, of all people, understood the power that you would get from being able to be successful in this line of work and in this career. And my mom's not too well informed as me and my dad are in terms of trading, but she knew just enough to be able to support me as well. But no, I think I got lucky. I think I got lucky because a lot of people that I do speak to, trading is obscure. It's not tangible. It's not realistic. It's not normal. Where the way we look at it is completely different. But luckily for me, my dad completely understood, and he also is very passionate about it as well. He obviously does his own thing, but at least the support is there.
That's the most important, because imagine if that situation would have been opposing, where your parents would have, of course, like said, oh, no, Mike, you need to finish up uni, you need to just, get a regular job, live your life, etc. Right?
Yeah.
But instead, they chose to support you of going outside of that regular path of life.
Yeah. No, it was amazing. It was amazing. And I look back at it now, and I do wonder what would have changed if I didn't have as supporting parents, at least in the idea of pursuing trading as a career.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think the whole path would have been way different in that sense.
Yeah. Most likely.
What was interesting as well to me was the fact that, okay, you started mining crypto, you started trading retail concepts, you came across ICT, and when you found ICT, it was immediately like, okay, light bulb moment after light bulb moment, I assume.
Yeah.
But was it the objectivity that you were beginning to see, or what was it?
So I'm a very visual person, and the probably the most undeniable thing was how the markets moved when you pursued and interpreted ICT concepts. Right. What interested me the most was the algorithmic fashion of it. And it was something that it's difficult to explain, but when I would look for trades, or I'd do my analysis, it was all of a sudden so much easier to read price and anticipate it. And I think it's based out of an inherently different sort of ideal in terms of subjectivity and objectivity. With retail concepts, there's too much subjectivity. With ICT, there was far more objective point of views than subjective.
But it wasn't fully objective, is what you're saying.
No, no, it
there
wasn't.
were missing pieces.
There were missing pieces.
When you then came across my content, was that then those missing pieces which were being filled in?
Yeah, so there was a lot of missing pieces at the start of it. And when I did the first mentorship, a lot of the questions that I had been answered. Yeah. But there was still some left.
Yeah.
And it had changed the way I traded even during the very first time that I started studying your concepts and interpreting price the way you did. And I have to say, it had helped me a whole lot.
That's amazing to hear.
But I knew for a fact, having looked at your entries, that there was something else. That there was
you must have more.
No, I didn't think. I knew it. I knew it. And
you were right.
Yeah. Well, I never believed or thought it would be to the scale of what it is today. Yeah. But yeah, at least I was right in terms of making the decision to pursue more knowledge. Yeah. I think it was the best thing I ever did.
That's amazing to hear. I'm really grateful for the fact that you persevered, because a lot of people at some point they might be, like at a stage where it's like, okay, this is enough. I got this trading model. I see this for a value gap appear. and then I just trade it every single time or whatever. But I feel like you and I are wired the same way in our heads, where we need to know. We need to know all the ins and outs of what's actually going on behind the scenes, because how else are you able to size up on a trade if you don't know every single moving piece behind why the market should do what it's supposed to do, but also when, of course.
Exactly. And this was what had changed the way I interpreted price, was the simple saying that you know very well: it's time, then price.
Exactly.
And I mean, it was unbelievable once I started viewing the markets the way I view them now. You can't go back. You can't unsee it.
No. What was for you like the main light bulb moment that took place, if you had to pick one thing?
I'd probably say one concept. I'd probably say time cycles.
Yeah.
One concept alone. And I mean, there is more. There's a whole lot more. But once you interpret price the same way you interpret time cycles, it changes everything. Absolutely everything. Once you really understand, once you really see it, once you really interpret it in the correct way, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm happy to hear that you mentioned that, because Mike, you're the first person that answered time cycles when I asked this question.
Oh, really?
And to me, the time cycles indeed are the most important as well, because it's time that moves price. It's not price moving time.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree
How
more.
did that change your perspective on financial markets when you begin to understand time cycles?
How did it change?
Yeah.
Well, it's like being able to read a book. Once you learn how to read, you can't not be able to read a book. So when you finally understand the way to interpret time cycles and the way they deliver price, it's almost highly improbable to go wrong. And what I mean by that is that once you start seeing all the things aligning and all the things coming into place, and you anticipate certain things to occur, time cycles are the answer to everything. Time cycles will tell you when and where. And I think it's the most powerful concept that I've ever been introduced to, for sure. And I utilize it on a daily basis, and it's scary how accurate it can be. Absolutely scary.
Yeah, because that's of course also something which takes place once you begin to see this again and again. That's even though you're in the UAE, which is a safe country, you're still looking around the room, thinking to yourself, when are they coming?
No, unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
When it comes to your current trading style, would you say you're a short-term trader, trading 15-second charts, 1-minute charts, or are you more on the longer term end, swing trading?
Well, no, I think for now, intraday. So it's shorter time frames. So usually entries will occur anywhere between the 1 and 15 second, 1 minute, 15 second. That's usually where I like to be. But I'm not opposed to the idea of swing trading as long as the opportunity presents itself. I think that's very viable. But for me, it's like you said, what more do you want, right? You can get in with 1 or 2 trades a week, and you're absolutely fine. Absolutely. So, and I'm chasing I don't want to be stuck in trades for long periods of time. I want to get in, get out, 30 minutes. That's it.
And be done indeed.
Exactly.
But what's interesting as well is that when it comes to, okay, being an intraday trader, short-term trader, whatever you want to call it, right? It is indeed important that you define, okay, when is that gross security run going to take place? When is that expansion going to take place? How do you know? Pay attention to time cycles again. Recognize your manipulation, anticipate the distribution again and again and again. But what's important to note there as well is that I think what a lot of people do wrong that pursue short-term trading is that they are too zoomed in. Yes, they are too like focused on, for example, they hear the idea of, oh, you can trade on the 15-second time frame. They keep the 50-second time frame, and every single break or for value gap that appears, they trade, right? How do you counter that right there? How do you make sure that that doesn't happen to you?
Oh, easy. I've made that mistake many times, even recently. The only way to counter such problems of being tunneled into a specific time frame is to have a very clear set of rules and a protocol, right? So when you understand how fractal price is, you can't forget what the higher timeframes are doing. So if you get trapped into the idea of only staying on one time frame, unless you can't view price on a lower time frame the way you can on a higher time frame, then it's not ideal. But the only way to combat that I would say from my own experience, is to make sure that within your rules, that step 1 all the way to step 10 occurs, and you do it in that order consistently. That way you won't get stuck in only a lower time frame. For example, for me, I don't even go to my lower time frame until 90% of my criteria is met. And then I drop time frames, and once I drop time frames, that's it. I'm in a trade and I'm just waiting, right? And there's no indecision, there's no hesitation about
second guessing yourself or whatsoever. Nope, it's just the prey is in your sight and you take the shot. And that's that hunter mentality.
Exactly. Once it's so mechanical, so objective, you can't really go wrong. There's nothing to really inherently destroy your rules, right? Once you interpret price correctly, and once you apply what you've interpreted, what you've learned, all the concepts, and you apply them in a mechanical fashion, it's very difficult to strafe away from that path.
Yeah. Well, an amazing answer to that question, because that's exactly the answer I was hoping for you to give. The more you stay on those higher time frames, and it's interesting as well, because even though we're trading on such low time frames, 15-second time frames, 1-minute time frames, you name it, we're actually more swing traders in the sense of waiting on the hourly chart, on the 15-minute chart, as long as possible. And only when we see very clearly what's happening, that is when we're dropping down, not any time prior. Sometimes you see these people, of course, you know, that are like trading on a 1-minute time frame, and it's the only time frame they use, and you're like, you're missing out on so much crucial data.
It's not only crucial data, but you're missing the big picture. Exactly. And that's the thing. That's the thing that you've ingrained into all of us, right? Is that the big picture is always going to be more important than what you see on a 1-minute time frame, right? So that's the thing. The way you lay it out is absolutely perfect. And when you get stuck in being on those such low time frames, you're really missing what's happening on the higher time frames. Exactly. And just like time frames, just like concepts of ICT, there is a hierarchy. There is a what's more important, right? What's happening on the hourly is far more important than what's happening on the 1-minute chart. Its value is completely different, nowhere near the same. So,
and when you apply that to the time cycles logic, of course, then all of a sudden everything begins to click. The bigger time cycles rule the smaller time cycles.
Exactly. There's a power to it, and there's the higher you view them, the higher the importance, the higher the probability.
Exactly, and that's it. Again and again. Mike, are you now at a stage within your trading where it feels like it's boring to look at the charts? Or are you still feeling that sense of excitement when you make your analysis, you know, you're anticipating a lower high of day to form, and boom, there it goes again?
I wouldn't say it's boring just yet, but what I'll tell you is boring is the amount of time I spend on the charts. Because before, I used to spend hours on the charts, hours. And I would do my analysis and I'd trade 2-3 times a day. It was unbelievable. Now, what's become really boring is not the execution. It's more of like the pre-shot routine. It's what I do prior to taking a trade. That's just become very boring. And it's boring because it's consistent. Nothing changes. And it's boring because when you go about analyzing kind of your narrative for the day, it's short, it's sweet, and it doesn't take very long at all. And like you said, once you see all those things playing out, look at the moment now, and it's still exciting. It's still very exciting when you make these executions, because it's difficult to see it happen over and over again. And it's difficult to believe that it's happening over and over again, every day, day in, day out.
Yeah. But at one moment, Mike, that excitement which you feel when you are right once again, it will fade away, because you know the moment that you enter, this is what everything is signaling to you that these high frequency training algorithms are going to do.
Exactly.
And then it's simply a matter of submitting to time, letting the time cycle do its thing, and boom, there you are.
Exactly. That's what I love most about it, is you just wait for time to do its thing, and that's it. That's absolutely it.
And from there, everything just occurs. But it's an interesting point you touched upon, that you mentioned indeed the shortness in terms of preparation required, and in terms of execution, and even the whole trading day required, where you mentioned that you can be done in 30 minutes. How was that when you started trading? Do you see a clear contrast between the two?
Oh, I would say it's more than clear. It's so different that it almost doesn't feel natural. And I mean this in the sense that for years, I would spend hours behind the charts, day in, day out, and I'd gotten so used to it. It felt natural. Now, it comes with drawbacks, right? You get burnt out a lot. And when you spend that much time behind the charts every day, you get fatigued, right? And it affects your decision making. So I think another very vital sort of concept is how you go about setting up narratives. And it's so quick, right? Where I'd say at best throughout the entire trading day, whether you're trading London all the way to New York AM and PM, you'd spend probably a total of like an hour on the charts. And that's nothing, absolutely nothing. And not only does your time become less, but your doubt is almost eliminated, right? So I'm nowhere near as indecisive and as doubtful when I interpret the markets. I set up my protocol. I look at the day, I set up the narrative. Once it's there, that's it. No more doubts, no more indecision. I wait for time and I wait for price. And once they align, that's it. I pull the trigger.
And then you just wait and you
And I
submit the
just wait.
time.
Exactly. And it's so much easier. So much easier.
That's very good to hear, because I really hoped indeed that you see that you would see the contrast between, okay, when you start off with trading, you have all these different thoughts in your head, because that's the thing. It feels unnatural because it goes against how society is structured.
Exactly.
Where you work a job, you spend hours working for your boss, and then, the day is done and you get paid. In our line of business, all of a sudden, it is, okay, you show up at the right moment in time, when you know price will do X, Y, Z, and boom, you get paid and you walk away and you wait for that next time. And sometimes that means that there's a day or 2 days or 3 days in a row, maybe even a whole week, that you're not doing anything.
Yeah,
because you're waiting.
Yeah, and there's no more of that need to take a trade every day. There's no more of that, right? When you truly understand time and price, it happens every day, every week, and it doesn't matter. Even in my rules, I don't trade every day, right? In my protocol, I don't have to, right? And there's days where I'm allowed to trade and days that I'm not allowed to trade. So the feeling of missing out on opportunity, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist at all.
The urge to trade has been decreased, or maybe even completely removed.
Yeah, look, I enjoy trading. I enjoy the accuracy, the precision,
the craft.
Right? Exactly. But there's no more of that FOMO, fear of missing out on an opportunity. There's always going to be another one, whether it's an hour or two from now, or it's going to be tomorrow.
Have you noticed that as well in TMU? That sometimes, you might take a long position, and then after that, when you exit, all of a sudden, other people go short. Have you seen it already?
Yeah, of course. I see it every day. Every day. Every day I see
it. That's that ping pong, of course.
That's the beauty of it. So I'd say the one thing that's really interesting is with everyone at TMU, once we're all taught what we're taught in terms of the knowledge, you'll see everybody either making the exact same trades in similar areas, but everyone is capitalizing on practically the same move except it differentiates from where exactly that move actually is. So some could be right at the bottom, some could be at the expansion area, right? The continuation. But either way, that's the beauty of it. When you have something so mechanical and you teach it perfectly, you can't go wrong. And you can see it in TMU with everyone else, especially everyone that I talk to. We all interpret price the exact same way, and we capitalize it in the exact same way. Now, whether it's someone taking a long while I'm taking a short, it doesn't really matter at all. The outcome's the same.
Exactly, because you simply hand over your position in the opposing direction to someone else. And that's what's going on behind the scenes all the time. From one position to the next, from one direction to the next. But one curse about Mike as well is that throughout your trading journey, were you ever this close to other traders in terms of not only the knowledge, the fact that you know exactly, okay, this person I'm speaking to has the same perspective as me on price, which is, first of all, completely ridiculous, right? When you compare this to what's taught in the normal world, it's crazy, right? So have you ever felt this close to others?
No, I've never been a part of a community this large, nor have I been a part of a community which in its whole interpreted price the same way. And I'd been in a community for retail sided concepts, right? And everyone interpreted price in the same retail fashion. But I didn't stay very long in that community for obvious reasons. But even before, at the start of my journey with ICT, I wasn't in any community. I probably spoke to maybe one or two people who interpreted price.
Was it a lonely ride?
Yeah, I'd say it's lonely. At least at the start. I wouldn't say any more though. Not at all. There's always someone I can speak to. And the TMU community it's massive. So,
and very supportive, because everyone respects, first of all, the fact that you've committed so much time and energy into studying this, because it isn't easy what we're doing. It isn't like easy to get your head around. It's the most complicated stuff in the world, right? Like, I'm hearing people that it's fun that your dad is actually a pilot, because I've actually spoken to pilots who are also in TMU that learned how to operate planes, etc. And they're literally saying to me, what you're teaching is way harder than what it takes to learn how to fly a plane, for example.
I don't doubt it.
That by itself is, of course, already like a sign of respect between every single student, that you know what the other person had to put in terms of like time and energy to get to understand this.
Exactly.
But secondly, what it also is the fact that, okay, you know that when you go out there and you, for example, speak to others and you ask a question, everyone wants to help you out. Everyone is eager to help because they know it's all about establishing relationships. And for how long have you been part of the actual community itself?
I'd say 11 and a half weeks.
11 and a half weeks now.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Absolutely amazing. And that's the thing. That's what I love. That's what I love the most about the community, is that nobody's shy to answer questions. Nobody's shy to ask questions. Everyone works together. Everyone.
Exactly.
And if there's ever a time where you have doubts about something, whether it's how you apply yourself on the markets, the way you interpret it, there's going to be 50 people ready to give you answers, and 50 people ready to help you throughout the same journey. And I think it's exactly like you said, it's because everyone can relate to one another, especially with the struggle. That's it, because where we are in sort of our journey in trading, it's difficult to get here and stay here. A lot of people, when they first start trading, they get discouraged very quickly. And the mass society has kind of interpreted trading as gambling, right? And it's not real. But once you put aside all those notions and you're still here and you're still trading, you're still studying, everyone else who's in the TMU is in the same boat, right? And they completely resonate and understand one another, which is amazing.
I love what you just described, indeed. That lonely journey as well, where you're going against everyone around you. And that right there is why I asked you prior as well, like, how is it possible, yes, that someone hears from everyone around them, but his parents, that it won't work out, you shouldn't pursue this, etc., but still keeps on moving forward? What was for you like so fascinating about trading that was like, I need to pursue this all the way? Was it purely the freedom, or was there more to it?
Now, there was more to it. Obviously, the freedom is beautiful, right? So traders are, it's very different. If you're employed, if you work a job, you sacrifice your time for money. Traders, they sacrifice their money for time. But what really made me pursue it was the way I interpreted the markets. The moment I was introduced to ICT, it's difficult to see how price doesn't move in an algorithmic fashion. And it's the same way I think about casinos, for example, right? It's not chance when you walk through their doors, right? Everything's rigged.
Yeah.
Everything is tipped in their favor. And why wouldn't trading be any different, right? And once you interpret price the way we truly interpret price, you can't unsee it. There's no misinterpretation. It's there. It's precise, it's algorithmic, and it's beautiful. It speaks to me in a sense where it's amazing to view every single day. Amazing.
You know what I love, Mike, is I hear myself in you, and that's pretty crazy. I see the younger version of Frank or Zuzi in you. And I want you to just stay focused on the mission, no matter what.
Yeah.
Just keep on moving forward, ignore all the distractions out there, and just do the same boring stuff day in, day out, week in, week out, because you see exactly what's happening.
Yeah, that's what's beautiful about it.
If you'd had to give like one piece of advice, yes, to any viewer who's watching this, who might be at a stage in their trading journey where things might not be clicking just yet, what would that piece of advice be?
I'd say knowledge by far is the most important thing in terms of understanding yourself and the way you want to interpret your journey. Socrates, a famous classical Greek philosopher, had a beautiful saying, which is, he who knows he is ignorant is the first to become wise. I'd say, having heard that if you're trading, and if you're interpreting price and trying to understand how it truly moves, there are more questions. There are questions you yet have answers to. Now, I'd give the same advice to everyone else, the same advice I gave myself when I first started pursuing is stay in that boat and use pure willpower, pure determination, persistence to understanding the way price really moves. And I promise you it'll be worth it. For everyone watching, I was in those exact same shoes. And if you stick with it, it'll be completely worth it. Completely.
That's amazing advice, honestly, because it's exactly the type of advice that I feel like people need to hear nowadays.
Yeah.
Because people are distracted. They're just thinking about, oh, what if I am able to drive this car or, do this or do that whatsoever. All of that is meaningless. What matters is that you get that fulfillment, which lays at the end of this road.
Exactly.
Do you feel like there's an ending to the journey which you're on? That you're like, oh, you know what, now it is enough? Or do you feel like you're always going to,
No. See, what's beautiful about the journey is that people say that the journey is what's fascinating or the destination is what's fascinating. What's fascinating to me is how you change as a person in that journey. And even now, on the journey that I'm currently on, the path that I'm currently on, I know the journey is going to be awesome. I know the destination is going to be even better. But what I look forward to the most is developing myself. It's developing my mindset, the way I interpret things daily, not just price, not just trading, but everything. And that change it's priceless because you can't get it from anywhere else. If you sit and you have no goals, you have no passions, no desires, you don't develop as fast. But when you're goal driven, when you're determined, everything comes into focus and you really change quickly, very quickly. That's what I love about it.
You attract it after you set the intention to figure this out.
Exactly.
And boom, opportunities come your way like that.
Yep.
How have you noticed that change if you're comparing yourself now versus the person that started, what is it, since 2017? So it's about 8 years already.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's look, I've got a lot of my close friends, they've told me that they've never met anyone who's changed as much as I have. And it's like two different people. If I was to go back in time and bring my younger self, we might look the same-ish, but we would be completely different and like completely different individuals, completely. From the way I interpret things daily to the way I act, it's unrecognizable. And that's valuable, very valuable. It's priceless.
Yeah, because you changed into the person that you were meant to be in order to understand this. Because I'm 130% confident that the Mike of 7 years ago wouldn't be able to comprehend what's truly going on behind the scenes.
No. You might have some conspiracy theory back then, but now to comprehend it the way I do it today, back then would have seemed impossible.
When you speak to your friends and maybe even your parents about your perspective now on financial markets, is there still that clash taking place?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, that's the thing. It's knowledge is power. Once you see things occur day in, day out, consistently, it's difficult for other people who don't understand it to understand your point of view. And remember, there's a difference between perception and perspective, right? Other people, they have different perspectives on life, and it's based on their experiences. It's based on what they've been open to, what they've been exposed to. But with some people, at least most people, not some, it's difficult to really connect and align with all our interpretations of life, and especially how the world works. And it's always going to be an issue. It's always going to be an issue, especially with people who have vastly different perspectives to you. And it's natural, it's normal. But it's only because they've gone through a different rabbit hole than I.
Yeah. Do you feel like you are kind of moving away from those type of conversations?
Yeah.
Because it's draining, isn't it, to speak
Very.
against the wall?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's a lot of people are closed off to other people's opinions, to other experiences. And that's why I made the quote about Socrates, right? When people are ignorant and they refuse to believe that there's more information, that there's more that they can understand, it closes them off. A lot of people don't have open minds. And once you are truly open-minded, you open yourself up to the ability to learn, to understand new things, and it will always change you. It will change your perspective in ways like no other. And most of the time, I do avoid a lot of these conversations, especially in public, because it's a concept that they won't understand because they don't allow themselves that opportunity to change and understand.
That closed off indeed. And that's of course due to a variety of reasons. But imagine, Mike, when you are speaking to people that are open-minded, that are beginning to see that's what's right in front of them.
Yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it, when you have those type of conversations?
It's wonderful.
Because I know exactly what you know, and you know exactly what I know.
Yeah.
And that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome though. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember when I first joined TMU, I think it was the first 2 weeks. Once I started learning the concepts, there was the first 2 weeks I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep.
I can imagine.
No, I'd go into bed and I would sit, toss and turn for like 3-4 hours. And it was just truly understanding what I just learned. And you would think about the possibilities, the applications of these concepts, how powerful they are. And then once I was completely introduced to TMU, all the conversations that you read or take part in, they're amazing. And you have these conversations nowhere else. And it's just like you said, it's because every one of us knows the exact same thing.
Exactly.
And there's no more clashing. There's no more butting heads. There's no more talking to a wall. It's spectacular.
and it moves you forward.
Yeah.
Where those other conversations hold you back, drain your energy levels, all of a sudden the opposing happens, where you begin to realize, wait a minute, what this person says is actually valuable for me to begin implementing on a daily basis. And that's how you begin to further enhance your current trading approach.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
But
completely
man,
right.
oh man, Mike, it's fascinating to hear the level of wisdom which you have, and also the level of understanding which you have, where you
Yeah.
dropped little golden nuggets here and there that if the people would have paid attention and not, be doing things on the side, scrolling on their phones or whatsoever,
Yeah.
they would be like, what? Did he really say that? It's the sequence of events again and again and again.
Over
The
and over.
word choice.
Yeah.
The
It's all
tone,
about
the
the word choice.
speed. It's
Yeah.
everything. Amazing, man.
Yeah. I love it.
But honestly, thank you very much for your time and sharing your journey as well. I think a lot of people can get a great deal of inspiration from your story, man.
Hopefully.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you will turn into. Where do you see yourself, let's say, a year from now?
A year from now?
Anything in mind?
Well, a year from now, I want to be able to master what I've learned. Truly in a way that I can't go wrong. And what I mean by that is that I want to become the kind of trader where it's like you say, it becomes so boring.
Yeah.
And I think from speaking to everybody in TMU and from their own experiences, once it becomes boring, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And you're doing it all right. So in a year from now, I want to be able to do whatever I want. And I do want to pursue trading as a career. And there are certain goals that I have, certain ambitions. So whatever makes me move 2-3 steps closer to that, I best believe I'll be doing it for sure.
That's amazing to hear, man. I'm really rooting for you, and I think you're going places. So keep that
Appreciate
mentality
it.
no matter what.
Appreciate it, Frank.